30 seconds.
Yeah, Minister, obviously the Brexit outcome or non-outcome is going to be a major consideration in framing the budget. But I ask you specifically here about the Irish Fiscal Advisory Council, their report, and where I think on page 17, where they lay out elements of the economy they feel may be overheating, but most constituents don't. I think our people don't recognise this. They see an economy that's perhaps slowing, and the growth rate has halved, and so on and so forth. So, what's your department's view on this?
Set out on a number of occasions my own view that the economy is closing in on full employment and might be on the verge of overheating in the future. But I've also tempered this view with the fact that an adverse shock to the economy, for example through a disorderly Brexit, would rapidly change this assessment. In fact, that was kind of reflected in the question you just put to me there, where you acknowledge that there are some signs of change in the run-up to seeing what Brexit may bring for all of us. Our economy is currently in good condition, perhaps most evidently from the fact that unemployment is now just above 5%. And more broadly, the other indicators that are associated with overheating, such as where we are with credit growth, the balance of payments and consumer price inflation, are not suggestive of an overheating trend taking place in the economy for now. But that being said, the work that the IFAC have in relation to their heat map of potential imbalances, I think is a very useful tool. But I think before any of us can reach a diagnosis that the economy is overheating, we need to be far clearer on where we are with the deflationary and growth slowing effects that Brexit might yet bring.
SRI, I think, has reported yesterday and also points to the danger of recession if in actual fact we get any kind of a disorderly Brexit. But I mean, it does seem incongruous, I think, for the Irish Fiscal Advisory Council, and I know, I mean, I still would support their criticism of your medium-term plans or your medium-term management of the economy, which they were very vociferous on last year. But I think for most of us, when we look at factors such as the delivery of housing, the fact that we still haven't reached a quarter of the kind of output we had in the period from 2003 to 2008, the horrendous problem of homelessness, the allied problem, the astonishing health waiting list, which we have up to 1 million of our citizens waiting on one list or another, the huge deficits we have in public transport, in so much in infrastructure, and the external environment. As you know, the Budget Oversight Committee is publishing its report to yourself and the government today, and of course they're talking about one of the issues is the global economic slowdown, the fact that Germany seems to be on the verge of recession, and so on. So clearly IFAC, I think their views are misplaced here.
As I understand this, the report that they have published here, or the section in the report, I should say, they have, refers to potential imbalances taking place within the economy in relation to how the economy could overheat. And as I said to the Deputy, if you were to make the case that the economy is overheating, which you're not, but if you were to make that case, that would mean then you would have to consider measures in relation to credit, in relation to spending within the economy, to look at how the overheating in the economy would be slowed down. My very strong view is that before we get to any such point, we need to be clear on what effect Brexit is going to have on our economy. You've referenced earlier on, Deputy, the quarterly report from the ESRI that was published last night or this morning. Just for the record, the growth forecasts that they published today are broadly in line with the growth forecast that I published for our economy in a no-deal setting. What they are indicating is that in a no-deal setting, our economy annually would probably move to a growth rate of around 1%. In the latest set of figures that I've published, which I updated throughout the entire year, we're indicating that it will approximately be 0.7%. So I've been open with the House in publishing my own analysis in relation to what a no-deal might bring, and the ESRI figures are similar to that in some respects.
Final supplementary.
Minister, yeah, well, I mean, my own reading of the IFAC report, they used obviously certain issues such as the high levels of non-residential construction, the inflationary pressures, a tightening labour market and so on. But it doesn't seem to show an output gap that's close to zero. And in fact, the areas of the economy which where we may need a stimulus, clearly, with depending on how Brexit turns out, you may need to have a very significant stimulus. That they remain, in that heat map, they remain in blue. And obviously, the external factors are very significant. That as depending on how Brexit evolves, we may be more integrated with the European economy, and looking at the kind of figures again which the Budget Oversight Committee has set out in its report today. Again, it's a slightly dismal prospect that those economies will be stuttering along or verging on recession, and that our own growth, even on your own figures, is destined to be even lower in 2020, even if there's no Brexit.
Final response from Minister.
What we have said is, if there were to be a no deal if there were to be a deal, that the growth of our economy would be approximately 3%. As you said yourself, Deputy Broughan, I would say to you, though, like a 3% growth rate and the ability to sustain that over a number of years could make a huge difference to our country and to our citizens, and to addressing many of the issues that you've just raised. If I look at the way growth has moderated in this Dáil, it was at a very, very high level as we exited the bailout programme and continued at such for a while. I think a more moderate rate of growth that we're able to sustain for a longer period is the best place for us to be. And if we were in a situation where we avoided a no deal happening and we had an economy that was growing up between 2.5% to 3.5% per year, and just normal, sensible decisions were made regarding how we manage credit and spending, this and future governments will be able to make a big difference to lots of the issues you've just raised.
Before I move on to the